You guys ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks. This is the Grand Forks City Council's Committee of the Whole for Monday, September 22nd, under item 1, call to order. 1.1, welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski.
Here.
Berg. Here. Lensky. Friedels.
Here.
Bean. And President Sandy.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Great. Under item 2, informational items, we'll get a very brief overview of our federal funding request for projects 8904. Mr. Krenko, good evening.
Probably be helpful if I had the mic on. Good evening, Council President Sandy and members of the committee. What you have before you this evening are a number of informational items on the various funding programs we have. Starting off with the Regional Roads Program, this is geared more towards anything that is within the North Dakota Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. This is going to be Gateway Drive, Demers Avenue, 32nd Avenue South, Washington, North 5th Street. Kind of rattle those off. The listing of projects that you see in here that are proposed, these have come from the North Dakota Department of Transportation's Grand Forks Local District. We end up working very closely with them to find out what their needs are and what they want us to put in for them to move forward to the MPO. In here you can see a number of rehabilitation and reconstruction projects focused primarily on Washington Street, but you also notice that there is a utility relocation project for the new interchange, as well as construction for the new interchange as well. Suppose with that, I'll ask if there's any questions on Regional Road Program.
Any questions, Regional Roads? Yes, Mrs.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. How do we plan on paying for our portion of the underpass?
Our portion of the underpass, how we're looking to end up paying for that is using a combination of, I believe it's clean water SRF and drinking water SRF loans, I believe at 2%. Is that what we're shooting for?
Yes, that's correct.
So we are looking to use those to help fund the local share of that project.
Okay, so is there a place for that in the budget then, or no, because we haven't?
Yes, that is included in your budget in your street infrastructure fund CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Further comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Bean?
Yeah, and we talked about this earlier. There is the federal funding that's been secured now. Is that right? Will you talk about that?
Yes, certainly. The Federal Railroad Administration, they have a $30 million grant that was, we were notified of that, I want to say 2-3 years ago. That grant agreement was signed and executed, I want to say that was August 1st of this year. So that has been secured. The remainder of that is either funding from the city or funding from the North Dakota Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Further comments or questions? Anyone?
Informational only.
Information only. Thank you, Mr. Krenko.
All right. Urban Roads Program, these are going to be focused more on our classified streets that are eligible for federal funding that are not within the North Dakota Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. Currently with this, we have a couple of projects that are already programmed. Next year, we've got the Point Bridge rehabilitation. And then in 28, we did have a project to reconstruct a portion of South 48th Street in the industrial park. However, we ended up shifting that funding from that project to the 42nd Street underpass project to help fund the shortfall that we originally saw on that one. With that in mind, we also have a project in 2029 that is out in the industrial park to reconstruct that portion. What we're proposing to put forward in this request is a project in front of that South 48th Street reconstruction project to essentially take care of the environmental document for that entire stretch of South 48th Street from Demers to 17th Avenue. That way then we can do that all at once instead of doing it in 3 or 4 separate segments, hopefully trying to save us a little bit of money on that one. Beyond that, we've got another phase, or second phase, of reconstruction on South 48th Street to slowly work our way north up to Demers Avenue. And with that, any questions on the Urban Roads Program?
Questions about the urban roads? Anyone? Hearing none. David?
All right.
Urban Grant?
Urban Grant Program. So this is the program that is geared more towards revitalizing downtown. We've used this very successfully in the past to reconstruct North 3rd Street, as well as 2 segments of North 4th Street. We were notified that we were awarded funding for the next phase of 4th Street in front of City Hall here. And I believe that is for 2029. And one of the things that we did end up seeing in the budget, I believe that was approved last cycle, is that correct? Is that moving forward, we're going to end up shifting to applying for this on an every other year basis. So we're not going to be looking to apply for anything this year. We will end up looking next year to apply for a project in 2030. And with that, any questions on the Urban Grant Program?
Questions on Urban Grant? Seeing none, thank you.
All right.
Transportation Alternatives?
Transportation Alternatives Program, this is geared more towards construction of bike paths throughout the community. We've had a fair amount of success with this in the past. In recent years, we haven't been awarded a whole lot of additional funding in this program. Because of that, we're shifting gears a little bit, looking at projects that might rank higher on the competitive scale. And so for the project we're proposing to move forward to apply for on this one is the extension of the shared use path on Demers Avenue out in the industrial park, going from 48th Street to essentially Coast's driveway. Main hope on this one is extending that bicycle and ped facilities out towards that area, as well as I believe that's 51st Street that's out there, as well as in the future we're hoping to work with BN on some shared use path crossings at the 2 railroad crossings in that area to work our way west and then connect up with the existing shared use path on 55th Street. Any questions on Transportation Alternatives Program?
Question about future bike paths? Thank you, Dave.
All right. Lastly, we have the Highway Safety Improvement Program. This is geared towards improving safety at various intersections and that we have around town. We've used this very successfully in the past. One of the biggest ones we had for this program was the left turn lane realignment down on 32nd Avenue. If you end up looking in the staff report, we also have information on past high crash intersection reports for the from the North Dakota Department of Transportation. The urban high crash intersection report ends up looking at the top 50 high crash intersections within urban areas. And you can kind of see how things have shifted over the years, and areas that we've addressed, like 32nd Avenue, once the improvements have been made, those have a tendency to drop off the list. We do have 4 that are on the list. Columbia and 24th, we do have a project program for that. Demers and 42nd, we have an upcoming project to change that to a grade separated crossing. Washington and Demers, the MPO has looked at a previous project for that one. However, that is a very large dollar amount project for that one. And then the last one currently on the list is Columbia and 17th. That's an intersection that we primarily have a lot of rear end crashes at. And that would also be likely a higher cost fix on that one. So the projects that we're looking to move forward with are a number of intersection improvements, including left turn lane realignment at Gateway and Stanford. We just replaced the signal up at this location this past summer. And that'll allow us to install a flashing yellow arrow instead of a protected left arrow at that location. Gateway Drive and 42nd Street, this includes a left turn lane extension as well as realignments. This is based off of a previous traffic study to try to improve that situation in that intersection before Agristo is developed. And along the same lines, we have an improvement at Gateway Drive and North Washington Street to extend that southbound to eastbound left turn lane. And with that,
Questions about the future highway safety improvements? Thank you, Mr. Krenko.
all right, thank you much.
Item 2.2, agrees to a letter of credit. Mr. Gusted.
Thank you, President Sandy and members of the committee. This is the letter of credit that's required by the development agreement with Agristo. It's a $250,000 amount. That was based upon estimates we got from to to review wastewater inspection department, assessing department, to perform certain studies, and it came up to $250,000 is what we would expect the city to expend it for these various studies and consultants. So that, and of course, the letter of credit is in place so that if there's a default or a termination event, we'd be able to recover those costs. The letter of credit has to be in place until the project is substantially completed. This letter of credit should look familiar. It was parroted from the Fufang letter of credit. The terms and conditions are the same. It automatically renews each September 30th, but they can provide what's called a non-extension, the bank can, non-extension notice. They have to do that 60 days in advance of each September 30th. Otherwise, it'll automatically renew for another 1-year period of time. The drawing events are if there's an event of default under the development agreement, if there's an event that would cause a termination of the development agreement, such as a condition not being satisfied or unable to be satisfied, where we can't resolve it with Agristo. Or if there is one of these non-extension notices and Agristo doesn't find a replacement letter of credit. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind is that even if we get this notice that they're not going to extend it, Agristo has a couple of options. Rather than getting another letter of credit, they could just deposit the funds if they wanted to in an account with the city, or we could just tap into those letter of credit dollars that this bank provides, put it into an account, and we continue to move forward. And we'd do that if there was really no reason, because there was no events that would cause a termination or a default at that point. It's just the bank was providing that non-renewal notice. Under the development agreement, the letter of credit is subject to approval through my office. Again, I ended up drafting most of this and parroted from the prior letter of credit that we got in the prior project. The bank requirements are that it's subject to banking laws in the United States, that it meets certain standard Standard & Poor's of an A- or higher, and a Moody of A3 or higher. We've done the investigation through the finance department. Maureen and Mike Vautensdahl did some work, and they meet all the requirements this financial institution does. So just providing information, we expect to have this signed and delivered by the end of the month.
Great. Questions for Mr. Gosted? Information only. Okay, moving on. Thank you. Item 3, discussion items 3.1, 2026 CSG program. Mr. Hansing.
Good evening, President Sandy, members of the committee. Before you is our request to begin the allocation process for 2026 community service grants. These are the locally funded human needs line item funding from Fund 2163. As you can see in our anticipated schedule, we look to bring this back to City Council for December 8th for Committee of the Whole to review the recommendations for funding, and then December 15th for ultimate approval. The application will be open in October. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
It's same dollars as last year, same process as last year, correct?
Correct. The only difference is that last year there was a preference for homelessness. This year, the CAC didn't recommend that, but the CAC will have another discussion on the 5th Monday, next Monday, and we're going to share some of the homelessness and housing working group information with that group. So,
thank you.
Last year as well, there was a difference. City Council had raised the maximum grant to $50,000. That was a one-time thing. Our program description has that at about 20% of the allocation.
Very good. Question? Yeah, Ms. Wasowski.
So these are not used for operations then,
They can be used for operations.
these can be used for operations? Okay. I guess I'd like to be really careful with using these funds towards operations, because then I just kind of feel, I guess I would like to see more projects get done with it than it be used for operations, because this money isn't guaranteed every year within our budget, and I really want to see these nonprofits support themselves. So I guess I would push for more project-based. Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Berg?
Is this different than the the 159,000 for the arts and human needs funds?
This is the Human Needs Funds, yep.
Okay, just clarifying, thank you.
Great.
I'll motion to approve.
Moved by Berg, is there a second? Second by Weigel, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Linsky. Further comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.2, reappointments of Paul Conlon and Stacy Johnson. Is it Johnson? Yeah, Stacy Johnston to the Historic Preservation.
I move approval.
Moved by Osowski, second by Berg. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.3, purchase agreements for project 9052 South End Drainway expansion from South 34th Street to South 38th Street. Good evening, Mr. Danielson.
Thank you, President Sandy, members of the committee. So you might recall earlier this year, we had in front of you a stormwater study for the south end of Grand Forks, primarily kind of focused on the south end drainway. And out of that study, one of the recommendations that kind of came to the front was an increase in storage in that whole drainage area. If you've been driving around the south end this year during the summer, you've probably seen that some of those ponds down there are getting expanded. That's part of the effort for that study. One of the other recommendations that came out of that study, amongst some other ones that I won't really cover tonight, is to expand the south end drainway itself from about the interstate over to South 34th Street. So just take that channel and make it wider to get us more storage in that whole system. So the amount that we're going to need to widen that is estimated at about 75 feet to the south. And to do that, we're going to need some extra property down there that we don't currently have. So over the past year plus maybe, we've been talking to the property owners down there, Sanford and Useldinger, to get that process moving. And in front of you tonight is the purchase agreements for that land that we would need to do that. Both property owners have been great to work with so far, and they've been real cooperative, so it's been really nice to have that cooperation as we move towards getting these projects built. In each of these purchase agreements, we've got a price of $30,000 per acre for the land to be purchased from them, and it's the same price for both property owners. That price is landed on as just, we looked back at some of the previous city projects where we've had to acquire land from private property owners to build public infrastructure, and that $30,000 is kind of where those numbers were sitting when we looked at those projects. So $30,000 is consistent across both of those purchase agreements. And then there is a little nuance in this whole area where there's currently a slope easement that exists on these properties for the drainway that's out there today. Because that land doesn't hold a whole lot of development value for them as it sits today, we agreed with both the property owners that that little strip of slope easement that's going to be encompassed in the expansion would be acquired at a lower rate just to account for the lack of development capability on those as it sits today. So there's a piece of land that's being acquired for the $30,000 an acre, and then another piece that's being acquired for the reduced $7,500 per acre. So between the two property owners, we're acquiring 3.6 acres of land, and it's split between the two of them for a total price of $74,430, and those purchase agreements reflect that. The only thing that you might notice as you're going through that is the purchase agreements read just a little bit differently, and that accounts for just the corporate structure of Sanford. Their attorneys asked for some different things in the agreement that didn't seem to affect the major intent of the whole agreement. So the attorney's office has gone over both those agreements, and all those seem to be sitting pretty good as they are today. So we are just looking to move forward with the closing on those acquisitions for the property for this project to move forward.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Danielson? Yes, Ms. Osowski.
Yeah, first of all, I think that this is a good use of our flood protection money. But I have a question. Did we budget for this land purchase in 2025?
So the budgeted amount is in the 2026 budget. So we would, I suppose when this goes through, we should probably ask for a budget amendment as well to incorporate this specific purchase in the 2025 year.
Okay,
a good
what's
question.
it under in the 2026 budget? Is
It should be under.
the south end drainage improvements?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
That's it.
I move approval.
Moved by Osowski, second by Friedhoffs. She can approve the next one. Any other comments for anyone? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Last, certainly not least, 3.4 Altru Sports Complex Project Phase 1 and Phase 2 updates and Altru Sports Complex Phase 2 approvals. Mr. Phelan.
Hi, Council President Sandy and members of the committee. We're going to provide you an update. We did attach the booklet. We got some good news on where we're at. So this evening, we are asking you to receive the update. Number two is we're asking you to move forward with schematic design, which, leads into further design. But we think we know enough and have enough positive way forward that we should further move through design. And then finally, there's a construction manager at risk pre-construction fee in there. So we are asking for those, both the schematic design with JLG and then with McGough, the construction management fee to help with the estimating as part of the project. And then once Adam Davidson's going to go over the JLG portion of the presentation, Oliver Finneman, who you've seen from McGough, is going to be here to go over some of the estimates. Also give you an update on how phase 1 is going. There's a drone video that he can narrate. And then we'd like to have some further discussions. Julie Rigg is here on behalf of Visit Greater Grand Forks and also Park District representatives. So we're going to give you an update on some thoughts that the mayor and the administration have regarding event management and how do we really manage events in this particular facility. So we'd like to have a discussion on that. Mr. Gost has been working with the Park District on the operations management agreement too, so he'll give you an update on that. So we'll just kind of go in succession line if you don't mind. And with that, I'd ask Adam to start us out, and Oliver should be quickly behind. The one last, I'm sorry, I got you, is one of the requests you had is what were the additional infrastructure costs regarding it, setting it ourselves up for phase 2, of which we're asking to move forward with. And there's an attachment there for your review. But it's estimated about $483,000, and that's for the water, sewer, storm, and the pavement and earthwork. So those were the additional costs that are ongoing right now that will be part of a change order for those contractors, but those are under administrative authority. We have that, but you guys wanted to know those additional costs to really fit up that whole area as part of the master plan.
Good evening. Welcome back.
Good evening. Thank you, President Sandy. Appreciate it. And good evening, council members. Thank you, Mr. Phelan, for the introduction. Let me get this to full screen mode and we'll get going. There we go. All right, well, good afternoon. So over the last couple months, the JLG team with our design partners, BRS, and our construction partners, McGough, been busy working on developing the programming and pre-design concept for Phase 2 addition to the Altru Sports Complex. We've been busy engaging the operator, which is the Park District, over the programming of the facility and how that plugs into operations, maintenance, and the overall performance of an addition, defining what the actual program will be, the elements, also working with community members too and some of the youth sports organizations from basketball, volleyball, wrestling, etc., the school district as well. And today what we have here is going to be the culmination of that effort into our concept design booklet. We presented this just a couple weeks ago to the advisory team that we use for phase 1 that included Mr. Veen and of course, Mr. Todd, you weren't able to be there, but a couple of council members in the city, and here for you today here to look through what we envision for phase 2. Real quick, I will breeze through some of these pages. One thing that I'd like to mention is that we are really trying to be holistic and really creating an extension of the phase 1 project. And so a lot of the design elements, a lot of the decisions that we made in phase 1 are very much applicable to phase 2 and to how the building will look, how it's going to function, and a lot of the ways that we make decisions are very similar to how we did that in phase 1. And so when we talk about the executive summary, the project introduction, some of what, the design threads, for example, I'll breeze through those, but just to help you understand that we are continuing some of those same conversations and ideas. We're not reinventing the wheel with this. We're doing a lot of that to make sure that the design is very holistic, and I think you'll see that at the end and how everything really comes together and plugs together to look like this was done from day one. So very important that it's a seamless transition between the two phases. So with the executive summary, I won't get into much detail. The two things I'd like just to bring attention here to the group is going to be the mission statement and the conditions of satisfaction. These are really two important criteria that we have presented in the past through phase one and continue into phase two. And these are really important to work with the Park District, the operations, but also the stakeholders and what's really important to this project. So with the mission statement, to grow a universal environment that primarily supports athletic performance, but also serves the community at large. Really kind of that rally cry for this project in terms of why are we here and why are we doing this project. And then add to that is the conditions of satisfaction. So at the end of the day, what are some of those things that we can come back and look back on and say, yes, we achieved and we have those conditions met and we were successful. And so those are going to be strengthen the community's quality of life standards through new multi-activity services and events that benefit the entire community. Grow the community's economic potential through enhanced athletic performance programming, flexible and reasonable planning, responsible planning, now and for the future, complement, not duplicate, of current community resources. So we still keep those here to make sure that we are approaching and tackling phase two just the same way as phase one, being very efficient with how we do that, ensuring that we are in line with the mission statement overall and the conditions of satisfaction. So when it comes to project programming, we developed two concept programs. They're very, very similar. They're really in scale is the big difference. One is a 4-court option. Those would be basketball courts versus a 2-court option. And the reason why we looked at 2 courts was to provide the flexibility that's needed to work with operations and understanding a pro forma. What does the maintenance cost look like? What does your revenue generation look like? And develop that in that range, right, of options to make sure we right size a design and right size a project program to the dollars that are anticipated to cost to run it, but also to create that revenue. And so in the 4-court option, just run through some of these spaces. The 2 major spaces are the gymnasium. So that would be a 4-court high school size court configuration that would allow for 8 volleyball cross courts. Also with those cross courts, you'd be able to do a middle school size basketball cross courts as well. Spectator seating for about 1,600, and that would be set up for the 4-court option. So if you think about a tournament and you have those tip and roll aluminum bleachers that you would set up, that we could support about 1,600 spectators for those at that time. And also we would have the divider curtains too to make sure this is as flexible as possible. During our stakeholder engagement, we do look at other things, not just the courts. So basketball, volleyball were probably the top 2, but we also did look at things such as wrestling. You'll see that coming up. We did look at other things such as futsal and other things as badminton. So again, the idea was to really work with the Park District and the stakeholders to make this truly multi-purpose and to really get the most bang for a buck with this. Make sure there's 0 dark days, as we say, and then you could program this with so many activities. The other big component of this, probably the second one, even rivaling a little bit with the courts, is sports training. If you recall, during phase 1, we had an alternate of sports training that we worked with. This is the Park District Sports Training. Currently, they operate over at the All True Performance Center, the old Shields building used to be. So this is looking at reinserting that back in. This would be about 7,000 square feet, which is about 2/3 the size they have now. The intent of this, you'll see this coming up here in the floor plans and the concepts, is to supplement what we already have in phase 1 with the turf, the sprint track, and add the 7,000 square feet to really get to where they want to be, where they need to be in that total square footage that they currently have right now. And so again, we're really trying to be mindful of what we already have in phase 1 and supplement that with phase 2. Additionally, we'll have some multi-purpose spaces, so this would be very similar to what we have right now in phase 1. If you recall, phase 1 has really 2 multi-purpose groups, one for aquatics, that's kind of our wet multi-purpose, and one for turf, which is our dry multi-purpose rooms. This would be a very similar configuration setup where you would have the ability to have 2 multi-purpose rooms that could be expanded to 1. So thinking about those large events, you would have a lot of people and you kind of need to be able to set up to provide that, or different other community activities throughout the year would be utilizing these. We also would have on the 4-court solution a referee and coaches room. So this would be very similar to what we have over at the turf space. Again, this is to help support tournaments, to be able to have a dedicated space for coaches and for officials away from the general locker rooms and other areas of the teams. So that's very important. We will be looking at what we say is a satellite concession. So this would be not a primary concessions, but a satellite location from the main concessions, which is already part of phase 1. We would have a small administration area, very similar. It's a satellite area. It's more of a control area to be able to have that on the west side of the building. A small little office, kind of a touchdown place for a staff member or two, and then also that control desk to be able to have that during certain operation hours of the facility. And then a lot of your typical lobby lounge areas, especially when you do have tournaments for your team, to have those spaces to lay down during events and games, and of course all of the storage that we'd have there. Not only for gym storage, but also really the main maintenance and receiving for the facility. And you'll see what I mean by that when I get to the floor plans. But overall, the four-court solution would be a total of 60,000 square foot addition in the southwest corner of the site to phase one. Real quick on the two-court, a lot of the same things. Obviously, the biggest difference is a two-court solution versus four-court. It would be set up, though, to where we could expand to a total of four courts in the future. So again, building that flexibility, what we can do today and what we could do tomorrow, if the four-court was something that we weren't proceeding with. Sports training would be identical in the two, so that is a program area that's very important to maintain the same multi-purpose. We would have that same administration area. The other thing we wouldn't have in this one would be concessions. I think that we would be at a size where we wouldn't need to have that satellite concessions to support a larger tournament. It would be something that would come later with a future addition with the forecourt. And of course, our other general areas, lobby, lounge, storage, and restrooms. With here, we're looking at a building total of about 38,000 square feet. Again, same thing to the southwest corner of the site. I'm going to breeze through these here, but again, same thing with the mission statement and the condition of satisfaction. These are some of the design concepts that we looked at. So again, want to make sure we have a seamless integration of this new addition to the phase one, so it looks like a holistic design. So just real quick here, the design threads was based off locality. Again, really trying to touch base with, the local environment that we have here in the Red River Valley and the upper Midwest. The activation really just playing true to what the space is and all of the activation that happens in there and playing off that in materials and patterns and rhythms and colors. And also visionary too, and some of the, choosing of materials and things of that, and really tying into, I think, some of the visionary aspects we see, whether it be in aviation, University of North Dakota, the U.S. Air Force, the government, et cetera, et cetera. So again, staying true to what we did during phase one in terms of our design concepts and what those threads are. So building design. So I'll start with the site plan. So what we have here, again, phase two is going to be an addition, whether it be 60,000 or 30,000. What we are showing here on the plan is a 60,000 square foot four-court solution to the southwest corner. It really plugs into that area of phase one on the southwest. The first one we talk about will be the main entry plaza, which is number one. Actually, I'm going to go a little backwards here. I think that'd be a little better. So number three is going to be parking. So one thing, and Oliver's going to cover this here in a little bit, is that we have done the site infrastructure reconfiguration and relocation as part of phase one to set up for a phase two, whether that be here today or whether that be here tomorrow. And so everything you see in item number three, I would say item number six, including, and even item number 5 in terms of drop-off, are going to be put in place now to make sure that it satisfies what we need for today, phase one, but also two for phase two. And so that includes the paving infrastructure, that also includes utilities. There are some utilities to assist with Hugo's Raceway as well as part of that. So a lot of that work is being done right now. When it comes to phase two, the number one and number two is really going to be our primary entrance points for that facility. It's not going to rival or be on par with the main entrance to the facility, but it's going to have its own secondary performance in serving the east parking lot and the west parking lot. And that would be where that control desk I talked about, right, to have that would be at that southeast corner of the facility. And so there would be a little bit of a landscape, a little bit of an entry plaza there. That area of the building will speak entryway as part of it. And again, it's really sandwiched between the west and east parking lot. Item number 4 is going to be, and what we have today, a little bit of reconfiguration, but that's going to be the primary service drive and really the primary loading and receiving for the facility. That will go into not only the turf building, but it'll also go into the court building, into the primary storage building. That'll be part of phase 2. And then other than that, I think that covers really all of the main areas. So again, just to make sure I kind of get that point through, a lot of this infrastructure is already going to capture into phase 1, really set us up for success with phase 2. And phase 2 really just plugs into the very nicely into the site and into the existing building. So the first conceptual plan will be the forecourt option. And so with this option here, again, you look at the forecourts starting at the very bottom of the screen. So this will be south. Again, you can see the main parking lot for the Ultra Sports on the east side there on the right, west on the left there. So we will have a main entry lobby that actually serve both the east and the west access points. When you walk in, you'll have that control desk, you'll have the administration that really greets you. You'll also have, I think, a lot of great visual into the facility. You also will continue that really main access all the way through the facility, connecting back to phase one, all the way up at the top of your screen there on the north, so that when it comes to wayfinding throughout the facility, it is very seamless and it's a very simple plan and how we really connect back to. If you recall some of the conversations we talked about with that pinwheel effect, this is really playing off that pinwheel effect as we do the addition, tying back into the existing circulation of the building. But as you'd walk in, you'd really have this really gracious lobby lounge area that would look into the courts. You would see the court space. There would be that multi-purpose room, concessions on the north with the restrooms. There'd be really an open lounge area, reminiscent of what we have in phase one, that'd be utilized for, again, those tournament days or for concessions. And then all the way at the north would be your sports training. And where sports training at is unique for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's immediately adjacent to the turf building. That sports training can open up and access the turf building. Very similar, if you're familiar with the Fargo Sports Project down south, to be able to have that program area with the sprint turf and the sprint track. We have, the drop downs for batting cages is there as well, so that the sports training and the way they program that can really utilize that very, very efficiently with that 7,000. In addition to all that storage that we have in the gray box there, could also support sports training. So that 7,000 square feet is primarily dedicated to program area for what they need to do in their programs that they offer. Over on the left side, we'd have the ability to enter into the athletic training spaces separate from the main entrance. And what's important to that is that the Park District can operate this area during after hours and not allow people to come into the main building, but come into the athletic training. So much more flexible in how the facility can be set up from an access standpoint and working with that. So just a lot of flexibility in how that program space can be utilized as well. And then with the four courts, you can see the high school court configuration. You can see some of the tip and roll bleachers on the sides there to give you an idea on how that can be laid out. Two court, very similar. Obviously, we don't have the other two courts. We would have the two courts addition and plan for that to the south. We would extend the lobby lounge, concessions and things like that would kind of be relocated. We would expand the restrooms, but again, making sure that we can set up for success today and tomorrow by having a space that may meet the programs now, but also addition in the future. On the exterior, again, very simple material palette. So a lot of the concepts that we'll see are very reminiscent and some of the same features we have in phase one to make sure that we really have that cohesive design between the two. And so here's an aerial view of phase one and phase two. Probably can challenge you a little bit to know where is phase one and where is phase two, and that's intentional, right? It looks like it's one building, looks like it's been done at the same time. But over on the left side, you can see the addition of phase two, a lot of the same language that you would see in phase one, right? When we talk about heights and massing and materiality and how that works to really make sure it's a cohesive design. It really kind of hugs the parking and drop off to make it really a protected environment for those entrance points, really great accessibility for pedestrians, the parking, whether you're on the west side or on the east side. But you can see how it plugs right into the pickleball bay area there too, and that the main entrance doesn't really compete with the main entrance of the facility. So it's very obvious on what are those entrance points, and here's a close-up of that, what that would be at the southeast corner of the site and the main parking. So again, just being efficient with the decisions we already made to apply those to the phase two in a cohesive design, but this would be the main entrance to the core facility at the southeast corner. I'm going to brief past the interior. This is just a quick narrative of some of the materials that we'll see in the inside, very reminiscent of the phase one, just for the city's record, as well as also to support our construction team too, as well, in estimating to have a complete list of what some of those materials are. But again, very, very similar to what we already have in phase one, continuation of the same systems. And then on the interior design, so this would be the forecourt solution. You can see over on the left, a very reminiscent window pattern and glazing pattern we see in the natatorium. So again, really trying to continue those themes throughout the facility. But you can really see the flexibility of this space. So again, this would be a tournament configuration for four courts as we go through there. And then after this, we do have volleyball, and see how we can set up for volleyball as well as for wrestling. And I'll just kind of toggle between here too. So you can see the flexibility of the four-court solution and how it really can satisfy those tournament plays and the setup that I can have there, the connections back to the existing turf building. So again, four-court high school. You can see the A court for the volleyball cross courts. This could also support basketball too for, youth and middle school courts for those cross courts. You can see here for wrestling mats, these are high school mats, I think 38 by 38 on there. And there's other things too that we could have on there to court line work, whether it be like badminton, whether it be futsal, things like that. But these are the three primary ones that we heard through the stakeholders. We want to show those configurations on how the space can support those. With that, I'm going to turn it over here to Oliver, and he's going to talk a little bit about the summary of costs here. We did break this down into two costs, one for phase one, or one for a forecourt, one for a two-court. These are total project costs, and really it's the same summary format that we've shown before to help you with some consistency in how we message this information. So with that, I will turn it over to Oliver.
Thanks, Adam. We'll go through kind of briefly what the anticipated costs for this facility are. So keep in mind when you're looking at this, these are, we're very high level, these are rough order magnitude costs that we've, received some design information from, and then we've looked back at where some of the bid pricing came in from phase one to develop these costs. So like Adam mentioned, starting at the top, we've got two columns, one for the four-court option, one for the two-court option. Working our way down, the very first line, phase one construction GMP. So that's the GMP that's already in place for phase one, which is the same for both options. Second line down would be the phase two court addition construction estimate. So this is what we're estimating that the construction of those two different facilities could cost. So for the four-court option, we're estimating that is going to cost about $19.5 million for the construction. The two-court option is $13.7 million. Obviously, the big difference that you can see is that the size of the facility, right? The four-court option is about 60,000 square feet as opposed to the two-court option being 38,000 square feet. Next on the list would be the phase one design fees and testing. Again, contracts that are already in place. And the phase two design fees and testing, those would be the anticipated cost for the design fees of the two different facilities. So totaling all those up, the cost for the four-court option was all in, kind of the all-in cost for design and constructions at $109,500,000, and the two-court option is $103,600,000. Few things to clarify. This estimate includes construction contingency. We don't necessarily have a design and escalation built into this because of one, where the original project bid and looking at the time frame for when this could bid, which would be this coming spring. We don't, from what we're seeing in the market, we don't think it's necessary to have those two built into there. And then the last one we don't have in there would be the owner contingency. So totaling all this up, so you've got $110 million project budget. So for the four-court option, if you were to move forward with this, we're anticipating we'd be about $500,000 under that $110 million. And for the two-court option, we'd be about $6.4 million under the $110 million. So obviously, this is very early on, right? These are kind of conceptual level pricing. If the project were to move in schematic design, we'd get more information, refine the estimate further, and kind of very, very similar processes to last time, just to make sure projects staying on budget and we'll bid out at least under budget. So are there any questions regarding the...
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Fritos.
Just real quick, you mentioned these are ROM pricing, so I know my industry is a little different, but like usually ROM factor is like 20% on top of something. I don't know if that's an industry standard or just to see, like, so, I mean, we obviously know there's a budget to come under, because I really like the four-court design. I think that's impressive and good for, some of these big tournaments that we plan on having, but just assuming that is that what you guys estimated, like a 20% overage on your materials when you get it, just kind of estimate, or is it kind of just what you've seen before?
We look at like other similar projects. So for instance, we looked at the facilities that we built in Fargo for the Park District, looked at the cost per square foot on those, compared that with some of the bid pricing that we got in to like, so what we're saying is we think that that facility can be built for this amount. So not necessarily, a 20% contingency in there, but they're numbers that we feel comfortable with that the facility could be built for.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lewinsky?
Can you go back a few slides? To one where it shows
can.
kind of the rendering?
The interior rendering?
Yeah. So,
Sure.
like, even one of those, where are the 1,600 people sitting? Like, I don't see a lot of space for spectators, but I read 1,600.
Yep. 1,600 would be kind of where you're seeing the tip and roll bleachers. So at both ends, you can see them over on the other side of the area too. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, which one? Back to here?
You point out where the features are.
Yeah, so if you look at the courts, the interior side of the courts is where you're going to see the team benches as well as the score table. On the perimeter, and you'll see this, and right now we're not showing all of them, but you would have on the other side of the court and the end courts too, the ability for aluminum tip and roll bleachers. These are usually about 3, maybe 4 kind of bench tier high. And that's what we would have in there for the 1,600. And that's really the max capacity that we feel comfortable with that we could get on the layout on there. It's not saying that we would always do that, depends on the tournament size, but we feel comfortable enough that we could do that with that type of arrangement.
Okay. And then my other question was the sports training. How come we're moving it from where it's at now? Because right now it's in the old Shields, right?
Currently, right now, that program is over at the Old Shields, yes.
Is it necessary to move it? It just seems like it would be one more space in town that was empty. Does it really need to be moved?
I would say that when you're talking about sports and athletic training, athletic performance, having the program space there adjacent to, like the turf, for example, is really advantageous for a lot of reasons. And I think that you could also do more. So when you look at it from an operator standpoint, when you have the ability to generate more revenue because of that type of facility and where it's located at, that's definitely a benefit. Could it stay where it's at? It sure could. But I think that with this, the ability to have it with everything else makes it so much more of a revenue generator, which really helps the bottom line of this facility to be able to generate more revenue. Kind of like swimming lessons, this program really has the opportunity, depending on what that is, to increase what they do to generate that. And it's really important. So to answer your question, yes, but it'd be much higher performing in this facility in one spot, staff in one spot too. You don't have multiple sites now around town where you have staff that could be centralized here. So for those reasons that it would be very highly successful.
So I think the courts is our main focus. Is it possible to see the cost breakdown? I saw it on both 2 courts, 4 courts, the sports training was included in both.
Correct.
Would it be possible to see with leaving it where it is, what the cost would be?
Yep, that would be possible. Yep, we can have a little bit of breakdown on what that component would cost on like a square foot cost basis. Yep.
And then it said it excludes site work. Do you have an estimate for how much site work?
We do have the estimate for site work, and that's a good actually transition, I think, over into the next part of the conversation, which is that. And again, I'm going to turn it back over to Oliver, and this will cover the site work infrastructure that we've done.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I ask a follow-up question on the athletic training?
Yes.
What, was Altu planning on renting that space from us?
No, well, Mr. Phelan, I'll let you take that.
Because they're currently renting space, right, the old Shields facility, so were they going to rent space in here?
Council President Sandy, I'm going to have the Park District come up and answer that question. This would be to consolidate sports training. It was one of the programs that they make money on. And so this would be to move that sports training to this facility. Right now, I think...
I'm sorry, Mr. Phelan, when you say they make money on, who is they?
The Park District.
Park District, but we're moving all through sports training,
We
right?
are, yep. This is actually what's occurring in George and his team are here. They're
George and Mike
essentially
and Jeff and Lisa, they always show up.
Yep, they should discuss what they do. They're not paying for that space per se. I think it's an in-kind support from Altru. Altru wanted to get out of sports training. The Park District stepped in to do that at that space. So really this is to help. I think it's about 5,000 square feet in that area. So This was one of the areas where they really wanted to incorporate it into this facility because it could add a lot of benefits. Certainly that old Shield store would remain there, but I'll have somebody from the Park District, they can probably speak better for themselves.
Mr. Hellier, thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, thank you, President Sandy. So the Altru Sports Complex space is owned by Altru, and the Park District currently rents that space from Altru, just like the YMCA also rents that space. It's about 10,000 square feet that we do programming out there currently for. Our goal would be to add space at Altru Sports Complex. There'd be just synergies by pulling people off the turf, off the aquatics, off the basketball courts, and then go from renting space to sports training or from sports training to the rented space. So you got user groups and people that are right there at that point in time. You don't have to tell them, hey, you just got done with your rental. I'll just drive across town and we'll have some people meeting over there. They're already dressed, they're ready to go, and they're moving straight into that space. Very similar to what we do at Icon Sports Center. We got the space upstairs at Icon Sports Center where they got sports training space there as well. They go straight from ice time to sports training space. So that is the purpose for it. We do feel like that is an area the Park District actually can make some money on this project with that sports training space. Again, it's about 10,000 square feet. We don't know if that's going to be enough with this. It might be in addition. We're hoping that maybe we could not rent that space as a cost for the Park District, a savings on that front. But it might not be, even the 7,000 square feet might not be enough. That's something we'll still have to see what the demand is and what our utilization would be.
Thank you. I guess I didn't know that the Park District performed the training for Altru and that.
We don't perform any training for Altru. We do it, we have users that we rent the space at their facility. But we do our own user groups.
Right, well, I'm sorry. So let me rephrase it. I didn't realize that the Park District did the athletic training at Altru's facility. It's branded Altru Athletic Training. So I assumed that Altru actually did it. I was obviously misinformed. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hellier? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Interesting. Oh,
Well,
I'm
I
sorry.
have lots of comments and questions, but are we all the way done, or should I ask
No.
my park board questions now?
Maybe we could get through the site work, that estimate, and then we have a couple more things, and then we could have whatever question you have, we'll be able to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peeland.
Okay. Go ahead, Owen.
All right. So what's before you is the pricing for the change order that is associated with the site infrastructure costs for bringing Phase 2 online. This was the $480,000 number that Todd had discussed earlier. So what this is, these are the additional costs associated with running more sanitary and water utilities, adding more pavement. We do end up having to relocate our job trailer to accommodate this new site work. So in there, so that we've got the cost for the McGough's cost for the job site trailer relocation, about $54,000 in additional concrete pavement, $57,000 in additional sanitary sewer, $97,000 in water main, and an additional $232,000 for the earthwork. So those are the hard costs, and then we have a default insurance, GL insurance in our construction fee that are calculated a percentage base on that to bring the grand total of $483,260. So that would be in addition to what's there right now.
And then maybe next, Mr. President, if we could do the drone, kind of the flyover, kind of where we're at with Phase 1. Do you know where it's at? Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, well, this is the most recent drone footage of the project. As you can see here, the concrete is being placed for the large pool. Actually, last week was a very large week for the project site. There was over 1,000 cubic yards of concrete placed. So we're taking advantage of what good weather we have left for this fall. On the left, you can see the deep dive well that has the wood framing around it. And within the next couple weeks here, we will be completely poured out with all the concrete for the pools. So we've been very fortunate with the pool contractor that we had that's been able to get out here and make good use of these long summer days to get us done and out before the snow flies. In the background on this, you can see the kind of the outline of the turf building. So those foundations are being dug and placed as we speak. And then over to the left would be the foundations for the pickleball area. Then as far as upcoming work, so here in about a month, you'll actually see the building come out of the ground. Some of the structural steel starts to arrive and get set on the kind of the center corridor, and that'll happen around the middle of October. Kind of following that, the precast, the exterior walls for the pool will go up in November, along with the turf building frame will start. So the building will really start to take shape starting in October, kind of through the winter, where you'll be able to see the outline of it next spring.
If I could ask Dan, he's been working on the operation maintenance agreement, kind of give you an update on where we're at with the Park District on that particular agreement.
Yep. Thank you, Todd. The agreement, we went through this several months ago, but I also indicated that there were a few things that needed to be tweaked within the agreement itself, some of which was, what would be city furniture, fixtures and equipment, some IT items that needed to be acquired by the Park District with some reimbursement from the city. We've, as of about an hour ago, I've been working with Laura Cobb, Park District's attorney. She's been really wonderful to work with. I received an email that the last few items that we were working on, it appears that what I had proposed on those last items have now would be acceptable to the Park District. Obviously, would have to approve it. We'd bring that back to the council too, and I'd point out the changes that had been made since the last agreement had been presented to you. However, in light of the Phase 2, Park District is thinking there might be some further changes as a result. There may be further furniture and fixture that would have to be identified, further IT documentation. I had identified a few things that I thought, along with those, there was provisions about what area of the Altria Sports Complex would be subject to Park District snow and lawn care, and what would be the city. That would have to be changed, a few of those things. And invited Ms. Cobb to provide me some information as to what other terms she thinks might need to be modified. That communication occurred today, and I indicated to her, given the fact that this was being brought up, I'd rather not have to present the agreement with Phase 1 only if the council is going to move forward to the Phase 2, just to incorporate whatever additional changes or modifications may be necessary to incorporate the Phase 2 within that management agreement. She concurred with that thought process so that we just have one agreement. I'm not necessarily expecting a lot of modifications, but like I said, I invited Ms. Cobb to speak to the Park District to give me a sense as to what other terms they may be looking for within the operations and management agreement as well. And once we've kind of worked through those issues, we'd for sure bring that before the council for its final approval on that agreement. So at this point, what I can report to you is that with respect to the Phase 1, I think the management agreement would be fully ready to be presented to the council, but in anticipation that Phase 2 may be approved in some fashion, I'm holding off on presenting it until we get a better direction on that in case there is some additional changes that may be necessary. So if they have any, well, I guess we'll wait till the end of the presentation for questions.
And Council President and Committee of the Whole, we are recommending the forecourt option with Sports Performance, to really consolidate all this into one facility. The other thing that the mayor and the city administration, we've engaged Visit Greater Grand Forks and also the Park District on making sure that we manage and really drive economic impact and quality of life to this facility. So with our two other partners, we've talked about moving forward with an event manager position for this particular facility. Similar to what occurs with, hockey, obviously, there's not a lot of dark days in the fall, winter, and early spring regarding hockey, is to create an event manager position with our other two partners to make sure that we bring events to this facility. Certainly, the Park District will manage the facilities. Our interest is in, raising the quality of life and economic impact in our community, similar to the Alara Center. And then Visit Greater Grand Forks would really be the center point on driving tournaments to this particular facility, whether it's on the turf or whether it's in pickleball or whether it's on the hard courts, on whatever sport that may be. Visit Greater Grand Forks has been positive and willing to help support that position. The Park District, has, in a similar vein, has concurred with that. And then we would be the third partner that would want to move forward with that and help on that particular event manager position. So those are all the things that we've considered, and we're all here to answer any further questions that you have this evening. President Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Questions for Ms. Osowski?
You have lots of questions. Is the presentation done?
I think presentation's done, yes.
All right. I guess the biggest thing that I don't like about this entire project is we are not considering the infrastructure within our budget. And now here we are with this phase 2, and it's an extra $400,000. And not to mention the rest of the infrastructure is not in there at all. So I don't even know how big that portion has gotten, but we are paying for currently the Children's Museum infrastructure. And I also see in today's thing that we're going to work with Red River BMX to pay for their infrastructure also.
Council President Sandy and Councilmember Osowski, that was always the plan as part of this whole master planned area, that we would incorporate sewer, water, the various pavement components, similar to what we did with the Children's Museum.
So for the BMX, it's 650,000 plus infrastructure we're paying for?
That is correct.
And then that's total, and so then the BMX is going to pay us back $100,000, correct?
The 100,000 was for that 650,000 was part of that facility improvement. So that
Right.
was the corners, the concession, check-in building, some of the start gate stuff. That was related to that payback. The infrastructure was always common use, whether it was for the Ultra Sports Complex, whether it's for Children's Museum or the Red River BMX facility. So that was always to be shared. And recall, we had substantial cost savings in that offsite infrastructure too, as part of those bids too. So that was always intended to
I guess
share.
I didn't understand that we were paying for their infrastructure also, because I mean, we're picking up a lot of infrastructure for a lot of nonprofits now at this point out near that facility. Another question I have, just kind of reading through this, is how did we determine that UND would pay $1.34 million? How did we determine that portion of the deep dive? Is that just how much the entire, just adding in the entire deep dive costs?
You are correct. That's specific to the deep dive well.
Okay. Now I have some questions, I guess, for the park board. If we could get
George,
them
would you
back
mind
up.
coming on up again?
So I would like to know, how did the user groups feel about, you know, we have a lot of basketball courts within our community, and it's my understanding that they pay a very minimal amount towards like the school district to use their facilities and stuff. So how did the user group actually feel about having to pay a larger amount to even rent these courts?
Yeah, so I think currently the basketball and volleyball use a lot of the school district gyms for their space, and correct that they pay little to nothing to rent those gyms. I think some of the spaces they get is not ideal. Some of the time slots they get is not ideal, and in some areas there's capacity concerns. So in those areas, they were excited for this facility. They're excited for the growth, but it will be a change for them to go from, you know, not paying anything to having fees that we would have to charge them to rent the space. So they were excited about the space, but at the same time, you know, they're using the gyms for free, and that's a tough price to beat.
Right. And then what do you see the difference in your operational costs from, you know, just building phase one to then adding on these basketball courts? Like, how much of a difference do you see in operational costs that you'll need?
Yeah, so we're just getting started on the operational costs for phase two. We finished up the phase one operations and maintenance projections, so we got a good feel for that. We finished that process off with our consultant. Phase two, we just started going. We got a back of the napkin estimate, I guess, on what we think it's going to be, but we got a lot more work that we need to do to kind of fine tune that number and start it. We're just getting started in that space. For phase two, it's, you know, the basketball courts is wide open spaces, so utility bills and will be the biggest component to that, but there will be other operational costs with that second entrance and a controlled access point. You know, that's going to introduce more front desk labor, and obviously cleaning and maintenance will be big components as well.
All right. With what you really know right now about operations, mainly, I guess, for phase one and including phase two, will you need to raise taxes to support this facility operationally?
Yeah, so the dollars how the purchase is going to cover this is through property taxes. That's the only mechanism that we have to cover the losses. So phase one operations and maintenance, we're looking at $370,000 of operational losses is what we're currently expecting. For phase two, again, we need to do some more work on that, but we expect that to be, you know, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could be as much as phase one. We don't know yet, but that's where we need to do some more work to fine tune what that number would be. For phase two, the purchase is subject to the legislator property tax caps, just like anybody else, and so we're subject to our 3% property tax caps, and that would be our limits that we would have to work within for phase two as well as phase one.
So if you're already determining a $370,000 loss on phase one, I mean, you'll have to raise taxes then in order to keep afloat, or do you have a bunch of money in the bank that you're going to use to help support the losses in the operations?
Yeah, so for phase one, we have currently in our current budgets enough to cover phase one's losses. So there's no change that we need to do to our budgets going forward. We anticipated this, we built towards this part. So we have dollars in our budgets to, we were planning on hiring a GM here in 2025, hiring more positions in 2026. So we've kind of built our budget to absorb that $370,000 loss. For phase two, that would be a bigger challenge for us, and that's where we'd have to find out what those phase two losses would be and what the purchaser would be able to absorb within their current budget. Or it would be looking at other projects that the purchaser currently does that we would have to delay or not do as frequently as what we currently do with our other projects and operations outside of All True Sports Complex.
All right. Thank you very much for that. That's really all the questions I have, I guess, ending on a comment. You know, I'm very thankful that phase one came in, you know, below budget, but that doesn't mean that we need to go bigger and grander and spend every dime that we're allowed to bond for. I have major concerns with the operational budget. I mean, those are my taxes too that will get raised, whether it's the city or the park board. That's still coming out of, you know, property owners' taxes. So and I'm real concerned if the basketball courts, I don't even know if they're going to be profitable at all, especially when people around our community are just, getting to use them for little to none, which thankfully they're allowed to do that with the school board. So I won't be voting for any of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Further questions for the Park District while Mr. Hellier's here? I actually have a couple of questions, Mr. Hellier. So we're showing wrestling. Who's spoken to the school district about adding wrestling to this facility? Has the Park District or has someone else done that? And is the school board willing to pay for using it?
So we met with the wrestling group. School district was present at that meeting as well, and right now they're at Central High School with their practices and stuff. It was determined that the Central High School is probably where they'll stay with practice because moving the mats and stuff would be a labor-intensive process. So, but the tournaments that they currently have, that would be something that they were very interested in with a larger facility, being able to host the tournaments there and possibly growing those tournaments. So, yeah, we met with the wrestling group. Their user groups.
Gladiators, yeah. But they also, so they pay the school district currently, right? But they were saying that they'd be willing to chip in a few bucks to help.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the relationship with the school district is on what they charge there or not. We didn't get into that. But they did seem interested in using the facility and renting it.
And so, and you're doing back of the napkin on phase 2. How are you going to, and I know you're using a consultant, but how are we going to determine collectively because this is an all of us problem, how are we going to know when and how much the basketball folks and the volleyball folks are willing to pay?
Yeah, so we're working on setting up, we had the initial meeting with the user groups and the school district and others, kind of work through some of the proposals, some of the talks that we were visiting about. We got a follow-up meeting that we're planning on meeting with them to kind of confirm what we heard and what their thoughts are on that process. So I think that's our next step on meeting with the user groups to make sure we got a good, solid understanding of that and there was no miscommunication. Some people weren't able to attend the meeting from their board, seeing if we can invite more of their board members to those meetings and have further discussions. So after we get that information, again, the Park District's meeting weekly trying to work on this phase 2 operations maintenance budget to see what that number would be and ultimately bring that forward to our park board as well.
Do you have any sort of a timeline when we'll know? I'm not super excited about spending $20 million without having any idea what it's going to cost us, what it's going to cost the Park District.
Yeah, I think we're at least a few weeks away from probably getting a number there for operations and maintenance. Again, the back of the napkin, worst case scenario, we're thinking around that as much as phase 1. But again, it might be significantly less. Sports training that we talked about earlier, that is a revenue producer for us. That is important for us to include in that facility, that most of these areas, all of these areas are going to lose money. Just how much are they going to lose? The sports training is the one space where we actually could make some money on and help offset some of the losses on those subsidies.
Got it. Thank you. Michelle, yes, Ms. Linsky?
Okay, can you explain the sports training just a little bit more? So say there's 4 teams practicing, 1 team on each court. So that's maybe 40 kids. Then there's, say, 40 more kids on the soccer field. When their practice is over, in sports training, there's approximately only 20 kids can take a class, right? So the chances of it really kind of working out that they can go from one practice to sports training is maybe 20% that they would be able to go to that class. I just don't know if it justifies moving it. And so I just was hoping you could talk a little bit more about that.
I don't think we're not expecting every kid that's renting turf is going to use the sports training, but it's very convenient and easy for them to walk off the turf and go on the one. So yeah, we probably won't get every single kid, and there won't be space to handle every single kid, but there would be kids that, because they're at that space instead of just for an hour and a half, now they're at that space for 3 hours, they would be able to just transition in that space. I think from a staffing standpoint, that definitely would be easier too. That having all our staff in one spot rather than driving across town and back and forth. Again, we're renting that space. There is a cost to that space that we do. It's part of the Ultra Wellness Village donation that Ultra generously made back when we built Choice Health Fitness. They had an in-kind donation. Choice Health Fitness has been in operation for 13 years, and at some point that in-kind donation is going to go away and Ultra is going to want cash. So we are giving up something right now as in-kind. Right now we've chosen to lease that space instead of other in-kind services, but in the future they're going to want cash for that space, which is going to cost money for us to do as well. So there is definitely a benefit for having us directly right there.
I guess one of my concerns is if a kid's practice goes till 5:30 and their class starts at 6:15, we all know how great teenagers are unattended for 45 minutes. I just don't want it to turn into a babysitting thing for you either.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to turn into a babysitting either. That would be challenging, but I think that's where we try and do the programming and try and match up those time slots so that way they move straight from A to B to C. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hillier? Okay, thank you thanks again for being here tonight, all of you. Additional questions for the architect, engineer, general contractor, Mr. Phelan, or anyone else? Mr. Veen, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy. A couple of questions I wanted to follow along is probably on construction costs. I don't know, Oliver, if you can help me understand this a little bit or be able to explain this. The bids we got on phase one were significantly lower than we had originally thought. The construction climate obviously was pretty positive. Was that what you would say?
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Do you see that continuing on to this next phase?
As of right now, yes.
Okay, so your indications working in the construction is that you would see that we would have that opportunity. The other thing I was going to talk about was a little bit about we're bidding the second package instead of change ordering it in on the original, right?
That is our plan, yes.
That's the intent as we go forward. If we are able to, I guess, bid it, like you've explained, there'd be some advantages if you didn't have to have mobilization happen twice from the original bidders, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I know when on the Fargo Sports Facility, very similar in that there was the base project going, they added on the addition. And what we found there is like the mechanical contractor and the electrical contractor, we bid that second phase out as well, and they were the lows there as well. Presumably they had lower, they didn't have the same mobilization costs.
And then carrying that a little bit further, especially looking at the comparison of 2 courts versus 4 courts, and doing that all at the same time now versus adding addition later on when you wanted to go from 2 to 4. Can you explain the advantages right now of doing it up front versus coming back and, I guess, tearing down walls and extending infrastructure? I would assume there's cost savings to do it right the first time?
Yeah. Obviously, you're going to you'll have throwaway costs of what have to be torn out. So you'll spend money to put it in right now, and then you'll spend money to tear it out in the future. Also, presumably the facility would be occupied while this work is going on. So anytime you're working inside of an occupied facility, you have to take additional measures to make sure that we don't disrupt operations, whether it be temporary walls to control the dust, just additional provisions for the fire alarm and et cetera. So all those things add to the cost of doing an addition in the future rather than right now. And then obviously you should be able to get a little bit more economy of scale when you're doing one larger contiguous project rather than breaking it into 2 smaller projects.
Yeah, my back of the napkin little figuring here said just on construction, not on some of the other costs. It looks like your 2 courts about $360 a square foot. And if you go to the 4 courts, it goes down to like $325 per square foot, something like that. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yep. I know the 325 is right, and I guess I should have checked on the two-court option before coming in here, but
The question I have, that probably the one that I'm concerned about most is the addition of contingencies. Can you talk about that? Because we have, owner contingency, construction contingency, FFE, IT, estimating contingencies. All of those are a real part of putting together these costs. And just wanted to have you maybe summarize that.
Sure. So the included in the two construction estimates would be a construction contingency, which will be carried throughout construction. A little different, we don't have the design and estimating or the escalation contingency in there right now, and that's more so due to the conceptual level of the plans. Like I said, we're looking at this, comparing it to other relevant projects, and identifying this is how much a facility like this could cost. And I think too, knowing where the bidding came in on phase one, we didn't want to be overly conservative on our projections as well. So I think we're kind of using some of our background knowledge from phase one that factors into the second phase. Escalation contingency, kind of your first question about the market, where it was at this spring, where we see it going this, I guess this coming spring. We think, from what we can see, it still should be fairly comparable from what we know is going on. So I think those kind of round out the contingencies that we carry, and then there's the owner contingency outside of that.
Yeah, and we do have that difference of about $500,000 in here. And probably for you, Mr. Phelan, that's intended for contingencies?
Council President Standing, Councilmember Veen, that would be for our owner contingency right now, and it obviously is not significant, that 500,000 to 600,000. However, kind of similar to phase one, I think what we're recommending is that we know what our budget is $110 million, and we want to be within that. But if we can continue to go through the design phases, we then can further refine these estimates. So we'll be able to refine that in more closer terms than we can right now, but without getting through schematic and some design development estimating, we won't know what we don't know right now. So we are asking you to have some faith, similar to what you guys concurred with in phase one, to continue to go through the process so that we can further refine that, and hopefully that 500,000 to 600,000 becomes greater over time, not less.
So, and Adam, you talked a little bit the time frame, because as your design documents, of course, get more complete, estimating's more accurate, right? So as we look at that, there will be a time down here where we will be able to validate our assumptions that we put into place so far, right?
Absolutely, yep. We would follow the same basic services in the phases: schematic design, design development, construction documents that we did in phase one, to have those key milestones in there to do the proper cost modeling that the CMAR will do to ensure that we're on the right track. So we would have those checks and balances, those risk assessments, the same as we did in phase one, to ensure we're tracking. So for example, right now, schematic design would go for about 10 to 12 weeks, I would say, approximately. So we would be looking at that first major cost model probably sometime in January of 26. Again, to make sure that we're tracking to what we're tracking in the downward trajectory that we want to be. We would then go into, if the council would approve that and things are favorable, we would go into design development, same as last time. And we would get to another cost model in design development. And also too, we would talk about that time, right, multiple bid packages, same thing. So we can get out early, get out next spring, get in the dirt, get under construction, same way. So same checks and balances, same cost modeling process.
Thank you, Mr. Veen. Yes, Ms. Osowski?
Yeah, with the additional infrastructure costs, where are we going to get that money? Is that in the budget for next year, or, because we're not bonding for that, so that has to come out of the street and infrastructure fund?
Council President Sandy and Councilmember Osowski, they would come out of the various funds, just like we did under Phase 1. I think Phase 1's offsite infrastructure costs came in at around $6 million, $6 to $7 million. And so when they went over the sanitary sewer, it would be the wastewater enterprise fund. The water main would be out of the water fund. Stormwater would be out of the stormwater fund. And then finally, some of that site work would be attributed to specifically whatever the utility. We do a proportion for all those 3 underground utilities. And then the paving was coming out of Fund 2163, your sales tax, is where that was coming out of.
I mean, I'm sure Marina's provided this before, but could I get like a written breakdown of exactly what fund and how much money is coming out of each one to support all of the infrastructure out there, please?
We can do that. So we'll break it out under Phase 1 and then add this increment of Phase 2. So you'll see in those 4 categories what the incremental increase is.
Okay, thank you.
Schweigel?
I had 4 questions written down. I think we've talked about 3 of those quite a bit, so I'm not going to go over those again, but maybe a question for Ms. Rigg from Visit Greater Grand Forks. Can you talk a little bit about sports tournaments in Grand Forks, the opportunities, and maybe what kind of impact they have on the city of Grand Forks from a financial aspect?
Thank you, President Sandy, Councilmember Weigel, and members of the committee. I'm Julie Rigg with Visit Greater Grand Forks, as I think you all know by now. Through many conversations with Mr. Weigel, the mayor, Park District, over the course of this building, we've talked about what do we really need to get these tournaments here. And at first, I think we were all thinking, more sales, more sales, more sales. I can tell you that's not what we need at this point. Our sales team can handle this and more. We can generate the leads. We can put together the nicest bid packages imaginable. But what we really need here is some support for these local groups. Whether or not they're planning their own tournament or we're bidding on a tournament, you need the support of the local groups. And I think as many of us who are parents in this room know, it's a lot of work. Most of these organizations are run by volunteers. There are a few that aren't, like Grand Forks Youth Hockey Association, Grand Forks Public Schools. They have paid staff to do this. So what we're talking about is a position that's a partnership with the Park District, the city, and Visit Greater Grand Forks. And this person would be responsible for actually providing management of the tournaments. So handling the logistics, working with us to get the bid package, working with us to make sure all of our services are in line for them. Coordinating with the Park District, of course, because obviously the building will need to be staffed during those times, but really handling a lot of those logistics for the groups and really working specifically with the local groups to what they need. Some might want more support than others.
And then just quickly talk about, I know you always bring a fancy summary of everything, but what kind of economic impact does the youth sports industry have in Grand Forks?
Well, it's definitely about the biggest economic impact we're going to see. Of course, if we get a Zach Bryan concert, that's going to pass it up a little bit. Speaking of which, last year's Zach Bryan concert on a Sunday and Monday night, we had 90% occupancy. I've never seen that in 30 years in this industry. So those concerts are great. The great thing about youth tournaments is they bring in not only the participants, but the families as well. And we've talked about this, you know, the Junior Grand Am and direct spending alone brings in close to $3 million. That's direct spending. That's not the economic impact multiplier. Particularly girls use sports too. Apparently more family members travel for females than males. I'm not sure why. We traveled enough for my son, but apparently they generate a higher economic impact as well. So they're coming, they're staying in our hotels, and then they're looking for family activities as well. So when we're talking about a new children's museum and having that available for them, that helps sell us and that helps the museum as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Osowski, something for Ms. Rigg?
Yes, sir, I do. Could you Okay, so if we talk about building 2 basketball courts at the Altru Sports Center, which obviously we have more than 2 basketball courts other places within our community, can you tell me about the economic impact, if there would be a difference in economic impact between whether the tournament goes to the Altru Sports Center or if it is done, at a facility that we already have within our community? Would there be much of it? I mean, because like talking same tournament, same players, same everything, is there an economic development difference between, we'll say, Choice versus where this is going to be?
Councilperson Osowski, great question. There could be a difference only in the factor of cost. So the higher cost building is probably going to generate a higher economic impact because, of course, then there's going to be local sales tax collected.
Okay.
So, but it wouldn't be significant.
Okay, and then, if we're speaking about, these local clubs, which do the local clubs make money when they have these tournaments then?
They should. That's really the hope. Sometimes, unfortunately, if it's a hockey tournament in the middle of January and there's a storm, that they could lose some money there. But that typically is the hope. So there's a lot of fundraising done.
Right. So, but then, if we have a local club and they're able to play basketball for a minimal fee with the park, or, with the school district, then that would be, but then instead they decide to have a basketball tournament at the Altru Sports Center, obviously that's going to dip into their profits because they're going to have to pay more to hold their tournament at a facility that's actually going to charge them, correct?
Yes, and I can't really comment to the local groups on the preference.
Right.
I think Mr. Hellier had mentioned that there definitely is some excitement from these groups because of time schedules. I was a hockey mom. My son just graduated last year, and I know some of the times he had to go play hockey, even as a little kid, were pretty late at night. And, we all think we have a lot of ice here, but it's never enough.
Right. I guess it's my understanding that none of the hockey clubs everything that was built for hockey in this town was built from private clubs, not anything from the taxpayer. But thank you, Ms. Riggs. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Can I add one thing, Mr. Sandy? I think the advantage to having the 4 courts is having everybody at one place. I know traveling for tournaments, whether it's soccer or something else for my son, you go from one place to the next place to the next place all over the community. So when you look at officials, having officials all in one place, you have your staff all in one place, you have your trainers. You don't need 12 different trainers to be on site. You can have 1 trainer or 2 trainers at one location. I think it's the logistics of putting on that tournament, having 4 courts, which are going to make it easier and maybe possibly make it cheaper. Even if you have to pay a little more for the building, just overall being able to bring in more money.
But just think, if they have to leave and drive around town, they're probably more apt to pick something up to eat, go shopping, spend more tax dollars, spend more money within our community.
They already are.
If they're forced to leave, then they're going to do some of those things around town. And so maybe it wouldn't be
If
the
I
best.
can comment to that, that is an exceptional point that you made about the under one building. I don't know how many of you remember, but when the Allaire Center was built, there was not a hotel attached. And we struggled for years to put conferences into that building because everybody wanted everything under one roof. And again, from the parents' perspective, under one roof is nice, and then you actually have more time to go out and enjoy a restaurant or to shop or to do those things in a community.
Yeah, I would agree, and I agree with Ms. Osowski, but oftentimes you have like a big gap built in, and so you don't have as much time because you're spending more time traveling, whereas if you can cut that hour and a half time frame down to maybe a half-hour break, you actually get done sooner, and you actually get to go out and do more within the community, just not stop at Raising Cane's like I do every single time we're in the Minneapolis area.
And when groups are trying to sell their tournament to get families and teams in, location matters. Look, the hotel that they're staying at, the location, and if they don't like where the tournament's being held in the town they go to, they will not come back. And of course, then we will lose the tournament.
Mr. Weigel?
I'll just add one more thing. I think if we move forward tonight, I don't think we're bound by anything. I think we saw early on with the,
Ms. Wright, I'm sorry.
thank you.
I'm going to need I've got a question for you. I'm sorry.
I don't think we're going to be bound by anything. I think that we saw when we went through phase one what our prices were and what the prices ultimately came back at. I'm assuming that if we do a bunch of the work now and say it doesn't come through and we can't afford it, that we still have all these plans and specs that we can use at a later date to build this project and get it done. And so I'm in favor of moving forward, seeing where bids eventually come in at, and then making a final decision at that point.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. Ms. Riggs, we're not deciding the shared employee tonight, correct?
No,
Right,
I don't
which-
even, I don't even have a job description
Right,
right,
okay.
right yet. We just came to that conclusion. We're working on it, though.
No, that's fine. I mean, ultimately, for us to get the biggest bang for our buck is to get more tournaments to town, not just the same tournaments that we have. So whomever this person is will be responsible for driving additional tournaments to town, correct?
Our sales staff will be in charge of driving the business. The tournament organizer or tournament manager will actually do the logistics of planning.
Got it. And so that person will be the liaison with the clubs, because it's the clubs that actually have to staff these. You had mentioned
Exactly.
earlier having the park district staffing the facility. It's not actually the park district.
They have their volunteers there, and they are mostly volunteers.
Right, the clubs.
Yes.
So I'll go back to, I'm really struggling right now with moving forward to spend $20 million when we don't have agreement from the clubs to participate within the facility. Everybody can say they're excited about the opportunities, and all of the arguments that are being made tonight are both valid and true. I would assume that those organizations would want to have additional tournaments at this facility, but we don't know if they're going to be participating.
And that's why, through a lot of thought, came to this conclusion, because we were looking at what do they need the most to want to even do these tournaments, because it's a lot of work, and there's not always a profit. So how can we support them the most?
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, Ms. Linsky?
Ms. Rigg, come back. I'm not super familiar with basketball. Can you have a tournament with only 4 courts? Like, I imagine Junior Grand Am uses 25 courts.
Junior Grand Am uses every court we have.
So is there, just talking about it under one roof, is it even possible to have a basketball tournament with 4 courts?
That would vary depending, I'm sure that there are some smaller tournaments, and smaller tournaments have economic impact too. So we don't want just the big ones. We can't do just the big ones. We need the small ones as well. So I think it would be a combination. Jody with Fast Break Club could probably comment to that a lot better than I could. But obviously then we would work with other courts as well.
Great, thank you.
Additional comments or questions, thoughts?
Council President Sandy, if
Yes,
I could just,
Mr. Field?
I think what we're trying to do is, I think the groups are under the current paradigm, and it's a restrictive paradigm. How much can we do as youth groups to do tournaments, so they do one large tournament a year? What we're proposing in this facility, along with swimming and the turf, is that we're going to provide you further support, so that not only can you do the one big thing, we can do smaller tournaments throughout the year, just like in other communities. So my kids aren't young and they weren't very athletic, but not everyone goes to the one tournament in one town for the big tournament. There's multiple things, and even whether you're a middle schooler or a high schooler, we're going to program this facility. And what we're trying to do is, instead of people getting stuck in the current paradigm, we're trying to broaden the paradigm. of saying we can do more and we will support you with these facilities. And that's where I think we have to expand our mindset to say, what can we do going into the future instead of looking back or presently what we do. This facility needs to break that paradigm, and that's what we're proposing in this. And to allow us to continue to work on that from an operational perspective, but also from a capital perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Freeland. Yes, Mr. Fritos.
So I'm just hoping everyone on this board learned a lesson from the first phase of this. We were all nervous and it's going to go over, and everything came in under, right? I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from the first phase, moving into the second phase, and if we don't move to the second phase, we'll never know what the cost is. And Danny is spot on for if we're not committing to anything right now, and we see if it's over, then it's over, right? And we go from there. But I think we at least need to get the ball into the end zone to complete the GMP2.
Ms. Berg?
I'll motion to approve staff recommendation.
There's a motion by Berg. Is there a second? By
Second with a
Weigel.
comment.
With comment? Yes, sir?
Yeah, I would say that there is opportunities for more tournaments. As somebody that has officiated youth basketball, high school, college level for the last 17 years, 2 courts you can have a tournament. Sacred Heart has one every year. 1 court you can, but 4 courts to have that running simultaneously is you're going to have a lot more teams, a lot more people coming. From not just a Crookston or a Hillsborough, but you're going to get them from all over. So I think there's opportunities to have the courts. I think there's opportunities from people that run these youth organizations or youth sports that are interested and they want to have more tournaments, but at times field conditions may limit you in the spring. They may limit you in the fall with the weather. And so I think the biggest opportunity we have is through those winter months. Bismarck has them because they have turf facilities with the bubble. Minot has them because they have turf opportunities with the bubble. And I think we're going to have those opportunities moving forward with this facility. And it's how can we push our youth organizations to continue to plan those and bring those tournaments to Grand Forks. And I think that's what that position will help do along with the other staff at Visit Greater Grand Forks.
Yep, Ms. Lansky?
Can we back it up a little bit and just, I'm not sure I'm convinced either, but so if we approve tonight, obviously that goes to next week, but what's the timeline for voting? When could we still say no?
Next week would be the last opportunity to stop the train on phase 2. I mean, ultimately, if the bids come in, the bids would come in and we'd have to approve the bids. So whenever that is, early next week or next month, next year, thank you. Ma'am, Mr. Freeland?
Yep, Council President Sand. You actually have 2 weeks, so we have 5 Mondays, so you have 2 weeks to ponder. Similar to, you're going to get, if you allow us to go forward to schematic design, in January of 26, we're going to be back here with a new estimate. And then we're going to ask you to go to, if everything works out here and we think it's viable, we're going to ask that we can go to design development. So you could stop it right here. You can stop it in January to say we don't want to go any further. And because you won't authorize us to go to design development. In the spring, in May of 2026, if everything works well, we're going to ask to go forward with a GMP number 1, similar to what we did under phase 1, which will be the first out construction. Buildings, foundations, site work. We're going to ask you to move forward with that. At the same time, we're going to say GMP 2, we got a really good estimate. There's going to be a similar ask. Allow us to go forward sooner rather than later, get the initial phase 2 work done. And then later in the summer, under construction documents, we're going to come back with GMP 2, and that'll be all the inside stuff. For the courts and sports performance and all those other things. So you have a stop. You can stop us right here in January. You can stop us in 26. You can stop us in May of 26. Similar to, you had several opportunities under phase 1 to stop because we got to keep coming back here with further definitions and refinement and there are going to be multiple stop points.
I have one more comment or question. So with the first one, the numbers that were used the bids came back much cheaper than we were anticipating. I assume now going forward with phase 2, we've used the lesser numbers to come up with the estimates. So chances of it coming in that much less is probably a lot narrower.
Council President Sandy and Councilman, I'll answer this because you're never going to get a straight answer out of the construction manager, right? Because in a sense, they never want to be wrong, right? Because nobody celebrates you when you're wrong or try to be as precise as possible, so they're protecting themselves on the downside. I think what they have now is they have more firm pricing under phase 1. They're going off of that. They're going off of other projects. And so I agree with you. We're not going to see the steep, decline in what we thought in this, because we should be much closer now than we were before, because this is really an extension of phase 1 under this project. And so I believe in Oliver, and think of where we are today. It's rather remarkable. It's a positive story. I know it's sometimes hard to have a positive story, but it's almost unbelievable where we're at 3 years after we started that feasibility study. It's an incredible story. Hopefully that story continues on because, we're upper Midwest people. We're thinking, there's got to be a huge downside and we've had too much positivity and we can only take so much. But I think we're going to be closer. I still think we're going to be under this $19 million estimate. But I agree with you. It's going to be much closer than under phase 1.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Hellier, we authorized spending $80 million, more than $80 million, without knowing the operational cost or the operational loss of the facility. My concern is not the $20 million, because I'm guessing that it's going to come in under that estimate. What I'm saying is we're authorizing spending $20 million without actually knowing how much the facility is going to cost the taxpayers annually. And so, Mr. Hellier, will you, I was a little surprised that when you said the $380,000, I think it was about $380,000, and I'm grateful that it's much considerably less than as 20%. It's a 20% discount than what we were thinking. Will you have sound numbers on this by January of next year?
Yeah, by January of 26, yeah, for sure, we'll have information by then.
Great. In which case, then I'm happy to move forward with this because we'll at least have the understanding and then we can be transparent with the public about what it's going to cost. And then we can all decide whether we want to spend that or not. Mr. Mayor, did you have something to add?
Yeah,
sir?
if I could just quickly, think about where we were 3 years ago. We did a feasibility study. The needs in the community was turf, it was swimming, it was courts, went to the taxpayers with that exact project. We had to pull out the courts. We were sitting in the same room thinking we had to pull pickleball out in the instructional pool. Now we're back today able to deliver the project that we went to our voters for right on budget. This just doesn't happen. I mean, this is pulled together with a great team, great decisions all along the way. I think having more for kids to do in our community is phenomenal. I don't think they need to be on their cell phones, on social media, dinging around video games, all that stuff. Let's get them out active and moving. This is a real signal to a community that's growing. I think, basketball, volleyball, all these courts are only going to add to what we offer in the community. I don't think there's been a volleyball tournament in Grand Forks in 20 years. So if we're talking just basketball, I think we're missing the picture. You got 8 volleyball courts. You got all kinds of things for kids to do. We're on budget and, potentially delivering the exact project that we showed 3 years ago. That just doesn't happen. So I think it's a great story. I think it's something we should be proud of. I appreciate all the work to dig into the details, but I think we're on the right track, and I hope we continue to move forward. So,
great.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Anyone? There's a motion by Berg, second by Vice President Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes. Osowski dissents. Thank you. Item 4, council member comments. Ms. Osowski?
No, thank you, Mr.
Ms.
President.
Byrd?
No, thank you.
Ms. Lansky? Mr. Friedhoffs?
No, sir.
Mr. Dean? Vice President Weigel?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I
to
move
adjourn?
adjournment.
Moved by Osowski, second by Berg. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.